Okay, welcome class. Chapter 7 in Organizational Behavior and Management, Evaluation and Rewards Influence Behavior. Very, very important chapter in Organizational Theory and Behavior. Let's start off with the learning objectives for today. Learning objectives is to describe the purpose of performance evaluation, explain how feedback is used to evaluate performance, summarize the basic principles of reinforcement theory, differentiate between intrinsic and extrinsic rewards, discuss how rewards affect important organizational outcomes, compare several innovative reward systems. We move on. Introduction. The manner and timing of distributing rewards is an issue managers address daily with respect to pay, transfers from department to department, promotions within the organization, praise, recognition. That's a very inexpensive way of giving a reward, and of course, more challenging and satisfying jobs, moving you out of the mailroom into something more substantial. So the rewards impact your behavior, your absenteeism. If you hate your job, you'll always look for reason to be absent. Turnover, meaning leaving your job, and not just you leaving your job, but just the general rate of everyone else leaving their jobs. Job performance, and of course, commitment at the job. So we continue with our video. Introduction to reward distribution strategies, universal or across the board for everyone, which again could be nice, but in a way, there's an issue that some people will feel that they don't deserve it. So you have to really be careful when you give it across the board that everybody that you're giving it to deserves it. Tenure or seniority, reward based on how long you've been there or how senior you are to the job, how many years you've spent on the job, and of course the job performance, which I feel is the best way of giving it. Just because you've been around the longest doesn't mean that you deserve a higher pay if you're not doing a good job. Just being there for many years and not accomplishing anything. There are people out there that become like furniture within the organization. To achieve maximum effectiveness, employee evaluation systems must be linked with reward systems. You evaluate somebody, you give them a good evaluation, there has to be a good reward associated with it, because otherwise people are not going to care about getting a good evaluation. Purposes of evaluation: judgmental, provides a basis for rewards allocation, identify high potential employees, validate the effectiveness of employee selection procedures, evaluate previous training programs. Development, stimulate performance improvement, develop ways of overcoming obstacles and performance barriers, identify training and development opportunities to improve your employee skills, establish supervisor-employee agreement on performance expectations. That is known as management by objective. Focus of evaluation: weighting of relevant behaviors, deficiency. The evaluation doesn't cover all aspects of the job, so that's an issue. So you could be missing an important part of the job that is not being addressed. Contamination. Activities that are not part of the job are included in the evaluation and of course contaminate the results. And distortion: improper emphasis is given to various job elements. Improving evaluations: you maximize use and acceptance of evaluations, increase employees' participation in the evaluation process, making it more organic and robust. Set specific performance goals, provide manager training in evaluations, evaluate on how effectively the duties were performed, communicate results to employees, of course, and actively recognize and reinforce good performance, evaluate performance on a continuous basis. Performance evaluation feedback: provide feedback after performance evaluations, explain what went into the evaluation, explain how to improve or sustain performance, avoid generic phrases. Managers generally fear giving feedback lest the employee lash back at them. Very few people like confrontation. Purpose of evaluation feedback: it's instructional, to instruct people, and it's also motivational, having you work harder as a result of it. So if you look at Exhibit 7.1, it talks about cognitive feedback model. You have feedback sources: the person, other, and the job feed into the evaluated person, vis-a-vis individual characteristics such as perceptual process, values, needs, goals, your self-concept, and your self-efficacy. Cognitive evaluation: credibility of feedback source, expectancies, personal standards, forms of feedback, objective or subjective. And that leads into behavioral results: effort, self-motivation to adjust, persistence, and disregard or non-acceptance of said behavior. 360-degree approach to feedback. Up to 90% of Fortune 1000 firms use some form of multi-source feedback program. Increasing use came from calls for fairness, clarity, and credibility. In a 360-degree program, evaluators could include creditors, peers, team members, supervisors, subordinates, and the person being evaluated. So it's all over the place. Best practices in the 360, used primarily for individual development. Integrate feedback with other activities. Link the feedback process with the overall strategy and direction of the firm. Exert administrative control over every aspect of the process. Make senior management role models. Use highly trained internal coaches. Evaluate the effectiveness of the process, the return on investment of the process. Arguments for the approach may address the constant concern about fairness and credibility in evaluation programs because you have many people involved. Arguments against it, sources may fear that negative comments will harm the person's career or salary progression and inflate their ratings. Limited observation of employee behavior by many evaluators. Reinforcement theory. Reinforcement is a key principle of learning. Positive consequences increase the strength of a behavior and the probability of repetition. Negative consequences decrease the strength of a response and the probability of repetition. Operants, behaviors that can be controlled by altering the consequences that follow them. A reinforcement is different from a reward. A reward is perceived as desirable and is provided after performance. Not all rewards are reinforcers. Reinforcers increase the rate of behavior. The reinforcement makes the behavior happen more often. Reinforcement theory, there's something called punishment and uncomfortable or unwanted consequences for a particular behavioral response. Can suppress behavior if used effectively, but is controversial. Should be used only after careful and objective consideration of the situation. Extinction, reducing unwanted behavior. If positive reinforcement for a learned response is withheld, the behavior continues for some time. If non-reinforcement continues, the behavior decreases in frequency until it disappears. Exhibit 7.2 talks about reinforcement schedules and their effects on behavior. We'll look at a few of them. It could be continuous. In the description, the schedule is continuous. The description is reinforcer follows every response. When applied to individual, faster method for establishing new behavior. When removed by manager, faster method to cause extinction of new behavior. An organizational example, praise after every new sales and order. You could also look at fixed interval response after specified time period is reinforced. When applied to individuals, some inconsistency in response frequencies. When removed by manager, faster extinction of motivated behavior than variable schedules. And organizational example, weekly by monthly paycheck. You could look at the rest for yourselves, Exhibit 7.2. Individual rewards. 3 main objectives of reward programs: attract qualified people to the organization, keep employees coming to work, motivate high levels of employee performance. Individual rewards. The reward process attempts to integrate satisfaction, motivation, performance, and rewards. Motivation alone is insufficient to cause good performance. Performance also requires ability, skill, and experience. Exhibit 7.3, it's a little bit hard to follow, but let's do our best. The reward process. So you have motivation to exert effort, right? You are told if you work very hard, you'll get a promotion, get a raise. In that, you have your ability and skill, and of course, your experience that help you. That leads into individual job performance. Of course, to the performance evaluation, you can have intrinsic rewards and extrinsic. That leads to satisfaction, which of course, then there's feedback back to motivation to exert effort. Look at 7.3 for the process. Satisfaction with a reward. Lawler's conclusions. A function of how much is received and how much one feels should be received is influenced by comparisons with what happens to others, how satisfied one is with both intrinsic and extrinsic rewards. People differ in the rewards they desire and how important rewards are to them. Satisfaction rewards continued. Any reward package should be sufficient to satisfy basic needs, equitable, individually oriented types of rewards. Intrinsic, we've been mentioning that many times. So intrinsic is self-administered, and extrinsic, initiated from outside the person. Extrinsic rewards, for example, salary, wages, employees' benefits, interpersonal rewards, promotions. Intrinsic rewards, completion, achievement, autonomy, personal growth. Rewards interact. Do intrinsic and intrinsic rewards have an independent additive influence on motivation? If one is experiencing a high level of intrinsic rewards, additional intrinsic rewards may decrease motivation or reduce intrinsic rewards. No study substantiates the extrinsic rewards have a negative effect on intrinsic motivation. There is no such study yet. Administering rewards, positive reinforcement, obviously giving positive reinforcement, expectancy theory, Victor Vroom's expectancy theory, valence, for example, how much you would appreciate it, expectancy, that you expect that you'll do the work, and of course you'll do well. Modeling and social imitation, modeling the behavior, and of course getting the reward for that behavior, of course social imitation. Rewards affect organizational concerns. Employee concerns affect perception, attitudes, and behavior. Organizational concerns affect organizational commitment, job performance, and turnover and absenteeism, which is to be avoided at all costs. Innovative rewards, skill-based, concierge services, broadbanding, gain sharing, team-based rewards, part-time benefits, and employee stock ownership plans. Just want to go over two of these. Just take a break for a second, go into my email. Found some interesting information. Gain sharing, found it on thebusinessprofessor.com. Gain sharing plan is a type of management scheme that a firm utilizes to increase profitability by increasing the employee's financial and emotional stake in the success of the business. It involves offering employees financial shares of the business gains for improved performance in order to motivate them to perform better. That's one definition. Let's talk about broadbanding. Broadbanding is an easy term. I just want to pull it up in my email. Okay, this is from whatishumanresources.com. Broadbanding payment is a practice in which a number of grades in a pay scale structure is reduced and the differential between one grade and the next is increased. Broadbanding is said to decrease intra-firm rivalry in employees and to increase inter-firm or cross-departmental flexibility. So it's defined as a strategy for salary structures that consolidate, put together a large number of pay grades into a few broad bands. And if you look at, and you can look at the next slide, which kind of explains that. Slide number 30, that is. Okay. Management, you have a wide spread within management. You can have salaries starting out at 20, 25 technical, services 30 to 140, for example, clerical start off at 16 all the way up to 50, and part-time ranging from 80 to 80,000. So there's a broad band, many different pay scales consolidated. So within the part-time section, you could have 88,000 to 80,000, clerical, general term, including that could be 16 to 50,000, etc. Slide number 31, line of sight, the key issue. Employees must perceive a real linkage, line of sight, real linkage between performance and rewards. I work hard, I get a reward. The basics of Victor Vroom's expectancy theory. Setting a clear line of sight is difficult and should be considered when designing a job. Making it clear, simple for them to understand. You follow a certain path, you hit certain thresholds and goals, you will get a reward. So, in review, we described the purpose of performance evaluation. We explained how feedback is used to evaluate performance, summarize the basic principles of reinforcement theory, differentiate between intrinsic and extrinsic rewards, discuss how rewards affect important organizational outcomes, and compare several innovative reward systems. Thank you so much for joining tonight and have a great day.